Hey everyone, I'm kicking off a new video series, a personal journey to acquire 100 apartment units in Southern California. I wanted to document this journey. To kick it off, I'm going to discuss my first purchase, which was a triplex here in Costa Mesa within Orange County. I talked through some of the things that I went through on my first deal. Hopefully this adds value. I hope you enjoy. Hey everyone, I wanted to shoot this video as there's a lot of investors who are wanting to buy their first multifamily property. And I often get asked by investors, hey, how do I get started? How did you get started? Tell me about your first deal. I'm trying to buy my first property. What should I buy? What am I looking for? Et cetera, et cetera. And there's a lot of thoughts that go through your mind when you're buying your first property. So I thought it'd be good to shoot a video and share on some of the story on when I bought my first property. And it wasn't too long ago. I had made other investments with partnership deals before buying my own property, but I just bought my first property on my own 3 years ago. I was 35 at the time, and I just wanted to shoot this video and go over some of the things that I went through on buying my first property, and hopefully that adds value to anybody viewing this video if you're going to buy your first apartment complex. So I started with a triplex. I wanted to go between 2 to 4 units so I can get the better leverage residential financing here in Orange County. You can get up to 75% LTV with 2 to 4 unit purchases. If you're buying a commercial property that's 5 units and up, the LTVs are a lot lower. So you would have to put 40 to 50% down, which is very common. So I'd much rather buy and get started sooner with the money that I'd saved up. So I went with, and really not even 2 to 4, I like 3 to 4 units because you can get an extra door, and sometimes the duplexes are just really expensive and don't really pencil at all. At least with a triplex or fourplex, I could put 25% down and plan to more or less break even. And then as I improve the asset over time, I'd start to see some cash flow. So first and foremost, I got started at 35. That's not super young. There's a lot of people buying units at 18, 19, 20, 25. It just depends on where you are in the country. But especially here in Southern California, 35 is a little late, but don't even worry about that. You know, just getting started and getting in the game is more important. Doing it sooner, but, you know, again, I made some investments passively before buying my own property, but it was really important to buy my own building. And here's some of the reasons why. Number one, when I bought the property, I was able to get a huge tax savings. That is not the first reason why I bought the property, but I did want to point out that it was a game changer for me in my career because I was making good brokerage income. And since I'm licensed and I'm managing properties that I own directly, I can take the depreciation loss on those investments and carry it over to my brokerage income so I can get a big tax savings. And then with bonus depreciation, I was able to take most of the write-off in year one. And I got almost a $400,000 write-off on this little triplex that I purchased. And that was almost $175,000 to $180,000 tax savings year one. Just with the purchase of the real estate. And the triplex that I purchased was near my house. So there's really no excuse. I can run this thing. It was very safe in an area I knew. It didn't need a lot of heavy lifting, which I recommend. I don't recommend you go in and go on a super big time fixer-upper on your first deal. That could be a little overwhelming for a lot of people. But I ended up paying $1.3 million for this triplex. It came on the MLS. Randomly just popped up one day, and one of my clients told me, hey, you should buy this. You know, this is perfect for you. You should do that. So I kind of got a little extra push from a client to go forward and move and buy my own building. And it was listed for $1.25 million. I paid $1.3 million. I got 75% leverage. So I believe that was $975,000 loan, $325,000 down. And again, I got $175,000 tax savings year one off a $325,000 investment. So that was a big game changer for me. And that's why I wanted to highlight it right away. You still got to buy the asset. It's got to make sense on its own. The tax benefits are just extra. That shouldn't be the reason why you be buying real estate. But this Plex was more or less in a great area. They randomly come up, very strong rental market, walkability to shopping and schools. Plenty of people want to rent there. The units were 1,000 square feet each, 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath units. So I knew those were a desirable unit mix. A lot of people wanted to rent, that type of floor plan. It had washer dryer hookups. It also had opportunity. It already had ducting to where I could add AC. So I went in and did that. With the $325,000 I put down, I immediately opened up a checking account and put in another $50,000 as a reserve, just because I didn't want any worries or having to feel like I'm feeding this thing. I already front-ended and loaded up the account with a $50,000 amount so I could draw off that to fix up the building. And I immediately had a vacancy. The front unit, the owner was occupying. They were moving out of state. So I had to go quickly in and renovate that unit. And that chewed up most of the $50,000. But I think it was good mentally, as I wasn't just seeing the checks coming out of my personal account. It was something already set up. So that was something I would recommend. And I'll post a little before and after right here where you could see what the building looked like and then kind of more or less what it looks like now. I went in and painted the outside after I renovated the front unit and dressed up the building, stained the fence, updated some signage and lighting. Really didn't do a whole lot of changes. The roof was fine. Overall, the building was in pretty good shape. It didn't need a lot of heavy lifting. The back two tenants were paying on time. They were good tenants. They were paying on average about $2,200 a month. Since then, I've renovated both those properties. Those tenants moved out and both of them actually bought homes in the pandemic. And I was able to renovate those two units and rent those out for $3,200 and $3,250. So that was a big, almost $1,000 lift, actually $1,000 and $1,050 lift on the rental rates. I went in and spent $40,000 to $50,000 to get those rental amounts. That was a bigger rehab. I spent more than I probably should have. But with this dollar amount, I just wanted to make it look nice, make it durable. So I didn't have to go in and fix it up in 2 or 3 years if a tenant moved out. I wanted these renos to last me 10, 15 years. So that return on cost from renovating those units made a lot of sense. That was about a 20 to 25% return on my cost. So that makes sense. I definitely looked at that. If I had to spend $50,000 and I can only get a $300 rent increase, well, then that doesn't make any sense. But it made a lot of sense to spend that kind of money if I'm going to hold it long term and if I can get that big rental lift. So that was something that was really important. But it was an easy deal to get my arms around. You come up with a down payment. That took some time. That took a lot of time, $325,000. But that was something that I accrued over time and did. You can certainly buy something and live in it and get much better creative financing. I already owned a home at the time, so I wasn't able to capitalize on that higher leverage opportunities. But I like the idea of a minimum putting 25% down on an asset, so you at least got some cash to come in. So if you have a turnover or you've got some unexpected cost, you've got some accrued savings. It was a lot less risk for me mentally. I could put my arms around this and still focus on my brokerage business. And then I always said, well, I would take higher risk opportunities later after I got my experience up. So, I mean, even a small deal, you got to do a lot of the same mechanics as doing a bigger deal. You still got to put the property under contract, go through the inspection. Everything's got to check out, check title, get the loan. You've got to deal with tenants. You got to deal with renovations. So I thought to do that more or less on my own account and learn directly. So when I go to try to scale a larger portfolio, I've got the direct experience. So that was something that was really big for me. But getting started is more important than not. And especially in this market, prices are up. I would say buy a good piece of real estate. I wouldn't go out and chase yield and try to find these smoking gems. And I mean, if you can, great, but not everybody's going to get a smoking deal. I'd rather you go out and get a safe, good location, and the property doesn't need a whole lot of work, because that would be a little overwhelming for me if you had to put a huge amount of money down on a property and then you got to put a ton of money back into a property. And I'm doing some of those now, and it would not have been fun on my first deal. So I would just take a little bit easier path and, just not get hurt. And one of my favorite investors told me, buy in a good area. You don't have to get necessarily the best deal, but buy in the best area. He coined it kind of buy a bad deal in a good area. And that kind of sounds a little funny. But what he meant by that is the market, if you buy in a good area, eventually the pricing and time overall, give it some time, and then that asset's going to appreciate over the long term. You can't fix the area, but you can fix the buildings. So that kind of stuck with me and helped me kind of push through and buy this first deal, because at the time, paying $50,000 over asking price, this is 3 years ago in 2018, the market was still really hot. Doing that at the time, that was a big number for that property, $1.3 million. So that kind of helped, that guidance from that investor to say, hey, look, just push through. It's in the right area. It's the right building. Go for it. Price is what you pay. Value is what you get. So some of those things that I kept telling myself, before I removed contingencies and did the deal. But since now, so I paid $1.3 million for the property. I've probably spent turning all 3 units and exterior plus or minus $150,000. So I'm into the deal for $1,450,000. It's probably worth $2 million now. And I owe about $950,000 on it. So I'm in a safe LTV. I since refinanced the property, my rate now is 3.625 on a 30-year fixed. I could go refinance and get that a little bit lower right now, but I'm just going to kind of leave it alone. More or less, if rates somehow were to drop a little more, I could go out and refinance. But the break-even period really doesn't make sense for me to do that, the cost of getting a new loan. But when I acquired the property, my rate was 4.75%. So with the refinance, I saved another $600 approximately on my payment. And with the rent increases on the back 2 units, I'm making a cash flow now of a couple $1,000s a month. And overall, I've been really happy with the investment. And it's definitely something I would recommend. Since I bought this property, I have went out and acquired 3 more identical triplexes on the same street. I didn't want to have a portfolio scattered all around town. That would take up a lot more time and energy. I do own other assets in the county, but this was kind of home base for me. So I just kind of rinsed and repeat and bought another building every year for the next 4 years. And I've done the same exact steps that I just went through. And now I've got 12 units on the same street, and I bought into it versus saving up a bunch of money and then trying to go buy a 12-unit apartment building. That's a little bit more overwhelming. So these are some of the steps I've done. I'm now going to post a new journey that I am making for myself to kind of document my journey and share it along the way. And this is going to be called Journey to 100 Doors. And I'm just going to go through and document some of the things that I'm doing to work towards a personal goal of owning 100 doors within Orange County. And just with this purchase as being my first purchase, and the 3 other buildings that I've owned on the street, I've got a total of 12 units on this street. And then I also have another fourplex that I acquired. And I'm pretty much buying a building every year and learning as I go, building a team more or less to help manage. And again, it's pretty small, relatively speaking, but I want to get the right people in place. So when the right opportunity comes up, I can just lean forward and press in and acquire that next opportunity. So the goal in 2022 is to double the amount of units that I have now. I've got 16 units on my own. Buy another 16, 20 units this year, get a little bit closer to that goal. But I thought it'd be fun to document the journey, post what I'm going through, and hopefully it's some value. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.